Dude, what's up? All right, so Canada
Yes.
just played one of the biggest games, really, ever for the country, but maybe one of the biggest in all the world this year. Beating Spain was really unexpected, but the way they did it,
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun here watching that live together with everybody.
Hell
Um,
yeah, we did.
Now they got a big game again. Slovenia, bro. It's going to get sloppy.
Man, I got to go back to what we saw with Canada, and there's very few times that I've gotten that excited about a FIBA game that was not a USA based team. um, that's just to me like the fact is that the way that that game went down and they wrapped the Canada team wrapped you around their finger, like you're sitting there and you're watching and for me the disappointment of Australia losing, it was rough, like I was still bitter about that, and then all of a sudden Canada just doesn't play like to what their capability, for really, let's just say it, 7 quarters in a row. 7 quarters in a row. They just don't play to what they're capable of playing at the level they can play. Brazil 4 quarters in a row. And then 3 first quarters here, and then they came out in that fourth quarter mark, and we talked about it beforehand. We discussed had to be the game plan in order to win, because these games you don't see a 35 or 40 point quarter very often. If anything, I don't think it happened this year so far. So they're 10-minute quarters. So for me, like I looked at that, and I'm just like consistently seeing this. Like they don't have a chance to score 40 points; they have to score less. And watching how Canada just locked down wasn't truly impressive. And SHAI, big shot after big shot, finding Dort hitting big shots. They just hustled, like they looked better when RJ Barrett was off the floor at some points, like, and that's not a diss against RJ Barrett. That's because you had Dort and Brooks out in the same time, shutting down everybody. Like, and it's, again, they're not a diss against Barrett, but when you have the two best defenders, two of the best, I would say 5 ISO defenders in the league on one team, it's going to cause issues. And that's exactly what happened when they had to go to that smaller lineup. They just closed them out, and it was beautiful, bro. Just completely beautiful. I felt bad for Spain because Spain had worked so hard, but I mean, like, the reality is that, like, we're all about Oklahoma City Thunder players, and that's it. Like, like, we just cheer for the Oklahoma City Thunder players, and SHAI doing what he did and dropping that beautiful game was just everything, man.
It was everything. Dort being there to be a part of it. I really appreciate so many things. There was so much to overcome for Canada. There were 2 massive possessions, or I think there was one 7-point possession where Canada hit a 3, and then Brooks got called for an intentional, a flagrant. They got 2 free throws and the ball back, and then they scored a bucket. So they scored 7 points before Canada got the ball back. So they went from being tied down 7. That was in the second half. There were so many things that they had kept having to overcome, but in the end, SHAI led them there. And man, what else can you say about him other than just saying, like, he's really come a long way. And when we say we're expecting more wins out of this team than other people, and one of the main reasons we think it's kind of silly to put like a cap on our potential playoff success by saying, like, well, this team hasn't gone through the hard knocks.
Yeah.
Like, while you're discounting SHAI's 2 years in the playoffs where he went to game 7s against the Warriors and the Rockets.
Yep.
The times he played with, Chris Paul, and Dort played with Chris Paul, and he played a game 7 that was, epic. You're discounting the fact that they're having these experiences on the international stage, and now SHAI's become like a first team all NBA player, but he's also got this international experience that would state like this is uncommon. Like, we're used to this type of take over what SHAI did. That type of stuff happens in the NBA. But the international game isn't set up for superstars to run it.
No.
And we've seen that happen over and over and over again with the US, where like these guys who are just like international superstars go and play the international game and they can't figure it out. And then you see like international players who just have the best international game, but they can't really be effective in the NBA.
Nope.
So there's like a difference in the game approach.
Absolutely.
SHAI plays both at the highest level.
Yeah, dude, and you see it, and we had a listener put a comment out there, the other day. It was just like basically like, you guys are so lucky to get SHAI. He's an amazing person and even better player. And that's truly exactly what we feel about SHAI.
What's
Like
up, Milani?
every aspect of SHAI's game and what he's able to do is truly spectacular. And Mark and I early on, like you look at the best of each player when they're young. Like, and SHAI was no exception. When Mark and I were scouting out SHAI in the early times of the Thunder with SHAI, we sat there and we were like, if SHAI gets to his best ability, where will he rank as guards? Because his upscale, you sit there and you want to do that with all the guards, and you sit there and say the upscale, like the upscale is on Morant, the upscale on Tyrese Hilberton, whatever his name is. But you can go
Halliburton, yeah.
Halliburton, thank you. I mean, you can go to all these different point guards in the league, and Cade Cunningham, and you can say what is their top line success, and you start understanding it says, okay, well, yeah, those are point guards, but SHAI's not a point guard really. I mean, yes, he is. He plays point guard a lot, right? But he's the hybrid guard of this next generation. He's going to play small forward on defense sometimes. He's going to play shooting guard. He's going to play point guard. I mean, he's going to play all over the place. It won't be just a set position for SHAI. And then you start recognizing like that's not normal. That's like how many of these other guys are playing, 5% of their minutes or 10% of their minutes in small forward positions. And you start recognizing like what SHAI does and brings to the table is just way more. And people will sit here and say Luka is the best guard in the world. And is, yes, you know what? If you're just comparing them on the offensive side and nothing else, right? Nothing else, then Luka looks like he's the better guard if you're just comparing the offensive side. But if you're looking at their entire games, the defense, the understanding of not getting necessarily the assist, but the hockey assist, and what SHAI does on like all aspects, block shots, steals, deflections, loose balls, like he does it all. And Luka does some of it, but he just doesn't get to that SHAI level. And then you start asking yourself, like, would you rather a player like SHAI, who's a team player, than somebody that you have to build around like Luka? You can pit a team like we have around SHAI, right? And you're not necessarily building around SHAI. You're building up SHAI's teammates. But in order to build a team, it's all about Luka, 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 Luka. Oh, it doesn't fit here, trade him. Doesn't fit here, trade him. Doesn't fit here, trade him. And that's what's happening. And like we're seeing that. So people can say, no, Luka's the better guard. But I strongly disagreed. I think we all
George, what's up, buddy?
are going to start understanding that this SHAI Gilgeous-Alexander is the best guard in the league. And it's going to be quite evident by the end of the year this year.
When you think about how fast he has risen to such a point and under what type of conditions, like Luka, you got Ja, you've got Trae Young, you've got these incredible guards that have really taken over the marketing element of the NBA. They're the most exciting young players that I can remember since like Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Kobe were young. You know what I mean? Like there's been young like generations where like there were single great players or a couple great players. But it's another thing to look at it and be like, okay, all these great guards are putting butts in seats in their cities. And then all of a sudden SHAI, late bloomer, passes all of them with the exception really of like you're saying of Luka and what Luka can do on the offensive end. But if you look at what SHAI does when it's time to win, you're saying maybe SHAI's the better player. They're going to get a chance for us to see who can get it done. But in the end, it doesn't always just come down to a single game. But this to me is classic basketball. We're going to look back historically and be like, this is when we realized how special this team was. I remember when 2010 was around, we were watching the U.S. do similar things with Thunder players. But one thing we even knew back then was the NBA game is different than FIBA, and you got to adjust how you play. And what we're seeing with SHAI, though, is SHAI's game works no matter what.
Yeah, dude. And I hate comparing our guys to other guards out there, but it's inevitable when they're young. I think a fair assessment, though, and I appreciate Blake, you saying Giddey's going to have a breakout year, because a lot of times we get stuck on SHAI, we get stuck on J-Dub or Chet. And we love talking about Giddey. He's one of my favorite subjects. Actually, probably my favorite subject. With that hair of his, I'll talk about him all day. And to me, like what Josh brings to the table with his ability to get that ball up the court and fit our system with it like a glove. Like we don't truly understand the concept of what Josh Giddey is going to bring to the table yet. We can sit here and we can guess and say Josh Giddey could average 14, 9 and 8, but the reality is that I think Josh is a way better player than that right now. I don't think that it's going to be one of those things where we're going to put the ball in his hands in the beginning of the year to expect him to score 20 points a game. But by the end of the year, I think it's going to be known that Josh is going to be our second to-go-to guy. And the reason that I think Josh is going to work his way up to that second to-go-to guy is because if you see what he has done in this game tournament is too cool, actually, is the one that brought this up, that SHAI and Josh Giddey has shot the same amount of shots in the tournament. Same exact amount of shots in the tournament. Did you know that, Mark?
Yeah, because Tuco told me, and I know the other part too, but I won't.
Go ahead and tell me the other part, man. Who shot more shots, or who
Well,
hit more shots?
Exactly. Who has a shooting a better percentage? Exactly, and they shot the same amount of shots. So that's Josh Giddey, which is mind blowing.
It's mind blowing, but it was by 2 shots. And if you think about that, the efficiency, and we've always talked about it with a J-Dub, Josh and SHAI, it's their efficient game changes everything. And now I've seen Josh step it up to almost the same exact efficiency that SHAI is at. And if that's the case, then why not give the ball into Josh's hands and the second we come down, especially if they have to put a bigger guy on him? Like if they have to pick a bigger guy on him, it's going to be a slower guy, then Josh is just going to come down the court, lull him to sleep, and go low, finish. Because he's finishing at such a high rate. It's insane. Like, I sit here and I truly wonder, you've been an advocate of Dort coming off the bench for a while. You've been one of those guys that like Dort could be a 6 man of, the year if he came off the bench, right? And maybe that's what's going to happen this year. Maybe that's what's going to inevitably end up happening, is because Josh Giddey is going to make it difficult for anybody out to be out there that can't hit the court in corner 3. And I look at the structure of this team, even Bertans, bro, who I think is probably the best corner 3 shooter in the league right now, right? Just because of what he's doing out there on the court is insane right now. And I think if you put him in the corner, you put Jay Will in the corner, you put any of these guys that Isaiah Joe in the corner, okay? They're lights out. The one player at this point, very given point right now, that cannot shoot lights out right now on that 3-point is Dort. And it doesn't mean he's not going to get there, right? But I think coming off the bench has showed me a lot from him coming off the bench with Canada. It showed me that he can come in the bench and be calm with that same fieriness. Doesn't take a lot of shots if he's not open. He is more in control. And I think that's the thing about I look at and I'm like, maybe a coming off the bench for him, allowing us to get that other starter that's going to be a knockdown corner 3 guy, allowing Josh Giddey to be at his very fucking best. And that's where it's going to get scary, because Josh Giddey getting to the hole is going to cause everybody to collapse. Okay. SHAI's going to the hole. Everybody has to collapse. J-Dub going to the hole. Everybody fucking has to collapse. And what happens when everybody collapses is there wide open men in the corners every single time. And if we shoot a high percentage from there, I don't think there's anybody in the league that's going to be able to stop our guards and our shooters.
And on top of that, you just drafted a guy in Cason Wallace who can play top-level defense on the best players on the other team. I know people aren't ready to give him that, but he'll prove it pretty quickly. And then also much better 3-point shooter. And my biggest thing about Cason versus, I know everybody's like, well, maybe this other guy. I get it. But with a guy like Cason, the reason why you want to give him an opportunity is because you don't want to draft somebody at number 10, who has the ability to be a star and then regulate them to the bench so that they don't end up living up to their fullest potential. So that's my theory with Cason.
Do you remember what I said about Cason when we were in pre-draft for him?
What'd you say?
I said,
George.
You, hell yeah, man. Appreciate that, man. Fuck yeah. We love you, man. I said about Cason, I said, if we drafted Cason is going to be Dort's replacement. It's inevitable. When that happens is completely up to Cason if we drafted him. That's where I'm at. That's where I believe. I believe that Cason is eventually going to be Dort's replacement because he's going to push him out because of the way he plays. But right now, let's enjoy Dort while we still have him. Let's appreciate the fact that Dort is going to break records on the defensive end this year again. And he's going to keep on breaking records, and he's going to keep on getting better at what he does. And if he comes into the game and he plays 22 minutes a game, allowing these other guys to play, and he's finding a way to be effective coming off the bench, then bro, we owe him a lot because we're going to see Isaiah Joe start. We're going to see Kaysen start. We're going to see Jay Will start. We'll see Poku start. You know, we'll see all these other lineups that will be crazy. And if you think about that and the different lineups that we can bring to the table that Coach D can really just experiment with until the moment comes of what? Crunch down time. And when that comes, we shorten that lineup and we know exactly who's going to be that starter for the rest of the year. And that's where it gets me excited because Coach D proved last year that he knows how to handle crunch time. And if you know how to handle crunch time, then you got a chance. You got a fucking chance to do something amazing in the playoffs, man.
For sure, bro.
Well, we love you guys.
Well excited. So tomorrow, U.S. Italy. Germany, Latvia is.
George, we're making this a short one today. Sorry, man.
All right. So, any chance you want to try to catch a little bit of the Italy USA game?
Well, you know what? I'm up for watching it. You know, so I mean, we don't have to have much people jump on here, but I'm up for watching it for sure, man.
All right, and then so that's tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we got Canada, Slovenia, 7:30 my time, Oklahoma time. Dave, 8:30 your time. We hope everybody will join us. We're gonna see how many games we can get in between now and the finals on Sunday. But if it gets boring, we'll admit it because we really want Canada to win it. So here we go, baby.
We do. Let's get
George,
it, bro.
we got you next time, bro, for sure. Sorry about it this time, bro.
Keep it short and sweet. Love you guys.
Love you, man. Bye.